Have you ever wondered about the reason we can live our lives with relative ease without fear of being hurt or murdered? Take away law enforcement from society and you'll have your answer. Police officers are the protective barrier between our right to lead peaceful lives and the criminal world. After doing extensive research on the topic of who police officers are and what they do, I came to the conclusion that although I am the sister of a police officer, there was a huge amount of important information I was not aware of. And today, we'll be taking a look at who police officers are, what qualifications you have to become a police officer, what the duties of police officers are, and finally, how the public should respond to police officers. So, first things first, what qualifications must a person have to become a police officer? Officer John Thomas, an 8-year veteran of the Elizabethtown Police Department with specialized training in numerous divisions including accident reconstruction, FBI hostage negotiation, and in crisis intervention coordinator, confirmed that the following list correctly outlines the major conditions an individual must meet in order to qualify as a police officer. They must be a United States citizen. They must have a minimum education requirement of a high school diploma and be 21 or more years of age. They must meet specific physical, medical, and psychological conditions. They must maintain a clean criminal record. They must be of high moral character. They cannot have a history of prior narcotic or repeated drug and alcohol use. They cannot have a history of ethical professional, prior employment, motor vehicle, educational, or financial improprieties. They cannot pose a safety or security risk. They must be legally eligible to own and carry a firearm. In addition, police officers must complete a mandatory amount of training at a police training center, such as our police academy in Richmond, Kentucky. Between 18 and 23 weeks of intensive training are done for every potential officer. In addition, training is covered at the specific department a police officer is hired at. Now that we've all mentally figured out whether or not we're qualified to be police officers, let's move on to the hard part, the job itself. Police officers are involved in a vast number of duties and responsibilities. According to Officer Thomas, police officers are responsible for traffic safety, criminal law enforcement, call response, traffic and security details, and dealing with the mentally ill and criminal cases. There are nearly 320 million people living in the U.S. As of 2016, there are just over 900,000 sworn law enforcement officers. Roughly 80% of those 900,000 make up our state and local police forces. In numbers, that's about 760,000 police officers. In a journal article comparing the US and UK models of policing written in 2007 by Paul Evans, the former director of the Police Standards Unit at the Home Office in London, he tells us that the vast majority of USA police departments have fewer than 100 officers. Our own Elizabethtown Police Department currently has 49 officers. Despite the fact that being a police officer is an extremely rigorous and dangerous job, they are not well paid. Officer Thomas stated that starting out, police officers are paid a salary of around $37,500 a year, with an unguaranteed 4% pay raise per year. The typical maximum amount a police officer gets paid averages about $60,000. To keep law and order, police officers are equipped with weapons which are used when a suspect is not compliant or is known to possess a weapon. Officer Thomas revealed that the standard weapons a police officer are equipped with include a .40 caliber handgun, an AR-15 patrol rifle, a taser, a baton, and pepper spray. In his own experience, Officer Thomas has confronted many intense and dangerous situations, recalling an incident where he faced a woman wielding a knife who had been drinking heavily and was threatening to commit suicide. Seeing that she had already been slashing her own arms, he tackled her and forcibly took the knife from her grip, saving her life. So with the knowledge under our belts about who police officers are and what they do for society, how do we, the society, respond to police officers? When asked about responding correctly to any confrontation with this police officer, Officer Thomas revealed 3 guidelines you should always follow. 1, always comply. If you are approached or pulled over by a police officer, don't ignore them or try to get away from them. Unconditional cooperation will ensure the safety of you and the officer. 2, keep your hands where the officer can see them. If you have a weapon, tell the officer and he will instruct you what to do with it. When you get pulled over, make sure you place both your hands on the steering wheel and have your window rolled down before the officer approaches your vehicle. In addition, if it is dark outside, turn on any cab lighting you have inside your vehicle. 3, obey an officer's commands and directions. An officer approaches any situation defensively. He doesn't know who you are or what your intentions are, and if you give him a reason to fear for his own safety, he must act accordingly. One final step that Officer Thomas did not mention, but one that should be mentioned, is to thank your police officers. Even if they issue you a ticket for rolling through that stop sign. FBI Director James Comey stated in a speech he gave February 12, 2015, titled "Hard Truths, Law Enforcement and Race." Citizens need to see what police officers see through the windshields of their squad cars or as they walk down the street. They need to see the risks and dangers law enforcement officers encounter on a typical late-night shift. They need to give them the space and respect to do their work well and properly. If they take the time to do that, what they will see are officers who are human, who are overwhelmingly doing the right things for the right reasons, and who are too often operating in communities and facing challenges most of us choose to drive around. Police officers go into work each day without the promise of coming home to loved ones. In my own personal experience, I have suffered a lot of fear and anxiety for my brother and for his safety while he's on duty. And I recall an incident about 3 or 4 years ago where he had stopped at our home while he was on duty to just chit-chat because the shift was going kind of slow. And suddenly this ungodly wailing siren came out of the radio he was wearing on his shoulder. Sprinting out the door, he told us that it was a police distress signal that someone had activated on the force. And a police distress signal is a signal that can be activated if an officer feels his life is in danger of serious injury or death. And there's nothing to this day more terrifying than watching someone you love run towards danger and not away from it. Keeping our community safe is a grueling, unpleasant task. Police officers always see the worst side of society and must deal with it every time they put on their uniform. Through the information we've covered, it's obvious to see how important law enforcement is for keeping law and order in a society. We've seen that the people they are and the work they do are shadowed in every way by the badge they wear and the laws they are sworn to uphold. And we as American citizens have a choice lying before us. We can choose ignorance concerning our police officers, or we can educate ourselves. However, there is one major consequence anytime you choose to not educate yourself on any subject. You forfeit your right to criticize. Unless you have educated yourself from both ends of the spectrum on any matter, you cannot have a balanced viewpoint. Therefore, show respect and compassion for our men and women in blue. They need your prayers and support.